Good afternoon, everybody. We're pleased to be involved in MediaTel's Future of Television session. I'm Claire Hayes, and I'm going to be comparing the session for today. I'm the Director of Creative Partnerships at ITV. And with me today, I have Simon Daglish, Deputy MD of ITV Commercial, who I'm sure a lot of you know. And I've got Leon Harlow, who's the Commercial Director of YMU Group. They'll introduce themselves in just a minute, but just to explain what we're going to be doing with you this afternoon, we'll look to explore how brands can harness television content and talent more effectively. We'll look at what great sponsorships look like and why they work. We'll give examples. It's always good to look at examples of deep brand integrations and how they have managed to get close to content and talent. We'll look at a big Saturday night showpiece that ITV has done. So let's get started. Dags, can I come to you first and just explain yourself, please?
Explain myself is a good way to put it. I'm Dags, as Claire said, Deputy MD of ITV Commercial. The reason that I'm involved in this is that ITV over the last sort of 5 or 6 years has become very well known for its creative partnerships, and it's an important part of our business, particularly over periods like this when one needs to adjust one's message accordingly. So I was very keen to come and talk to you about some of the things that we've done and our partnership with Talent and Leon and YMU.
Leon, it's your turn to explain yourself, please.
Hi Claire. So my name's Leon. I head up commercial partnerships at YMU Group. So we're a big talent management company looking after lots of well-known names in TV and entertainment, film and drama, comedy, music and sport. And like Dag says, we've worked really closely and collaboratively with ITV on lots of great content partnerships, sponsorships and wider campaigns down the years. So we'll share a couple of those examples a bit later on.
So to start off then, Dags, at ITV, where we aim to be very culturally relevant in what we do, and it's a huge part of what our objective is to be part of that big national conversation, particularly on Saturday nights. So why does it help to provide the context between the brand and talent in these partnerships?
Well, I think it comes down to this, is that culture is a word that describes many different attitudes and movements. And I think in this context, one should think about culture in the context of the viewer's relationship with what they're watching. So Britain's Got Talent has a particular culture. Coronation Street has a bit of particular culture. Saturday Night Takeaway has a particular culture. They're different shows and people consume them in different ways. I mean, you cry in a drama, you're unlikely to cry in Saturday Night Takeaway. So they are different emotional states. And I think it brings you down to two things, content and context. And it's really important, I think, for an advertiser to be relevant and add to that content and context rather than interrupt it. There's the ad space that we put between the shows. That's culturally accepted. That is a form of interruption, if you like, small different form of entertainment in between the different parts of the show. But if you want to become integrated into the show, then it's really important that you become part of that culture and that context, not interrupt it.
And Leon, what's your thinking here in terms of context and the ideas that your talent get themselves involved with?
Yeah, definitely. We're constantly creating partnerships between brands and talent, whether it's TV personalities or actors, comedians, music acts, sports personalities. And I think it's definitely true to say the most successful partnerships always with talent in any genre are the ones where the context is believable, where it leans on a passion that the audience knows the talent has, or like Dag says, it's an extension of a TV show or an environment that the audience recognise the talent from, but then giving it something fresh, something different. And I think the other thing that drives success with talent partnerships is where they've had real input creatively. You know, audiences can always sense that. I think, you know, content where the talent have shaped the creative and their true tone of voice and personality come across, that's where it really works. And I think where you can make that connection, that's often where the most successful partnerships happen.
And YMU Group, you look after as a talent agency several of ITV's big name talents. Can you just talk us through that impressive list?
Yeah, God, I don't want to leave anyone out, or we seem to be.
We won't be listening to who you go with first.
Yeah, yeah. So I mean, a real mix of ITV names, from Anton Deck and Holly and Phil and Fern and Davina and many others across the different genres on ITV. So it's been great to collaborate in lots of different ways with you guys on those partnerships.
So our first example is actually looking at talent of a totally different kind. So Dags, I'm gonna ask you to set this up. We're gonna show our viewers here an idea and a brand partnership that we're very proud of, that goes back several years, but really was one of the ones that started all of this off, and it's Compare the Market and the Meerkats. So can you intro this, please?
Yeah, and an interesting one. So Coronation Street is the longest running and the most popular soap in the UK, regularly broadcast to 7-8 million people 5 times a week. So it's huge. And so when you bring a new sponsor on board, a new partner in this case, you have to make it relevant to the consumer. Why are they there? What are they doing? What are they adding? And when Compare the Market came on board, they had a group of meerkats, and the natural link to a group of meerkats and Coronation Street, you know, it's a difficult one. So what you then have to do is understand the essence of the meerkats' relationship with the audience and the essence of Coronation Street's relationship with the audience. And so we started telling a story of Alexander, who, as you know, is the lead meerkat, and his character is one of, let's say, he doesn't lack any confidence. He's a very confident man, and we told the story through social and through Coronation Street that actually Alexander thought that if he wanted to communicate to the British people, he had to do something big, and so he bought Coronation Street in an Alexander way. So he felt that he bought it. So what we did is we did a series of films where for the first time ever we broke the fourth wall and we allowed characters onto the set. Now obviously the meerkats are fictional characters, so we allow them to come onto the set, to be introduced to the set, and actually play a part of introducing themselves to the audience. And you'll see this in a series of clips now, and that then morphed after a year of working with the meerkats and Coronation Street. The audience really loved the association, thought it was fun and playful. And then we celebrated their first birthday of partnering Coronation Street with Gary Barlow being interviewed, because Gary Barlow is obviously from Manchester. It was his first solo album for 12 years. And he launched his solo album with the Meerkats on Coronation Street, which became one of the sort of most iconic pieces of advertising at the time. But on this clip I'm going to show you, this is just how we introduced the Meerkat family to Coronation Street. And for the first time ever, we broke that fourth wall. And remember, this is a 9-year partnership, so that's how successful it's been. So I guess we just roll the VT and you'll see what I'm talking about.
Stop car! Thank you. Come along, Sergey.
Compare the Meerkat.com toys proudly sponsor Coronation Street.
Oh, come on. Hello? Hello?
Hello?
Compare the Meerkat.com toys proudly sponsor Coronation Street.
So there it is. Nice to see that all again. I mean, that was quite a significant break with our teams, wasn't that? To show those characters walking in that location. Give us a little bit more, Dags, on the kind of teams that were involved in that, because I know that we went very deep in with the Meerkats, not just the brand, but the creative agency. We worked very closely with them.
Yeah, the creative agency, BCC Blue, were fantastic. So we spent 3 days on the set with the creative agency and our writers and producers from Coronation Street, so they could understand the characters in Coronation Street. It really helped because the lead creative was a Corrie fan, so he really knew the show. And we worked, you know, on how the audience would feel when the Meerkats suddenly arrived. And we filmed it all over 3 weeks. We also did other social content, which was the Meerkats interviewing various characters and telling various storylines within there, within the creative that we produced. But the point about it, it was a wholly collaborative relationship. It was the creative agency and the client and our writers and producers of Coronation Street all sitting in the same room and coming up with something that they knew would be enjoyed by the viewer. And to that point, we talk about context. So you suddenly produce something that is great content, has great context, and fantastic, and as a result, fantastic reception from those who are watching the show. As I say, it's had 9 years of success, and I think it's probably the longest running sponsorship in TV at the moment.
So moving to the second one of our examples, and we're going to come back to you, Leon, here, because this is a great example of ITV using its big scale Saturday night brand campaign to design advertising using a big talent that fits inside that Saturday night scale and culture. So the one that we're going to talk about is the Suzuki series of ads that we did with Take That, which was on air last year, coinciding with the boys going back on tour and that wonderful album that they put out. So I think in this instance, what I'd like to do is just suggest that we have a look at the VT first, and then we'll come back and discuss it. So roll the VT.
Boys, we've got a brand new mission. There's a busload of stranded fans on the way to our gig. It's a good job we've got this lot, men. Get ready for it.
Listen, forget this, boss. This is your Suzuki surprise, and we're going to take you to our gig in style.
Get in, we have a Suzuki for everyone! Let's begin our journey. Ask any question you want.
Will you marry me?
Oh. God, everything changes but you. Where about tambourine come from?
OK, ladies, well, we're nearly here at the gig.
Yes!
Have you enjoyed your Suzuki surprise?
Oh my God, it's been amazing. The best day ever.
Brilliant.
The greatest day of our lives.
You'll never forget this.
Here we are, guys. Enjoy the show.
Suzuki brings the fun to Saturday nights.
So the scale in that is just absolutely huge, and you and I were both involved in the creation of that. So Leon, just give us the background, because ITV's had a much treasured relationship with Suzuki on Saturday nights, and this was the second iteration of it.
Definitely, yeah. No, I think as you say, it's a great example of a partnership between talent, a brand, and ITV, where all the partners really worked together and trusted each other from the outset. I remember, like you were saying, Claire, when we were brainstorming the idea out, and one of the things that really helped was Suzuki and ITV giving Take that opportunity to shape it creatively. A lot of what you see in the ads, those were real fans. You know, we were really bringing cameras into a live arena show, and getting the permission from the talent to do that is always about trust. So I think, you know, and the kind of the tone and the personality of the band that everybody loves really shining through. I think the other thing as well that made that partnership such a success was, you know, we often talk about the value exchange between brands and talent, and you know, the brands that want to really understand the talent they're working with and what they're doing more widely, what are their longer term objectives, you know, how what audiences are they trying to build, how are they trying to position themselves, and Suzuki really did that. They really wanted to know and understand what Take That's objectives were more widely and how they could support them. And, you know, for example, Take That wanted to do a cinema live stream of one of their big arena gigs that, you know, a lot of their audience couldn't get to, and Suzuki supported that. And then it went on to become one of the most viewed cinema live streams of any British music artist. So it's kind of getting to really know and understand the talent at the start really unlocks some of those wider opportunities as well.
And it was a very ambitious idea, that to go from locking off junction 9 of the M1 and in one day shoot taking us all the way through to the O2 and filming actually inside, so that we could see the band from the point of view of the audience. And Dags, coming back to you on teams and collaboration. So that ad was actually made in-house at ITV, wasn't it? Oh, Dags, you're muted.
Sorry, going back to the relationship between Suzuki and Saturday Night Takeaway, it stems really from the same DNA, which is, I think, the DNA of successful partnerships, which is this idea of collaboration. And originally when Suzuki came on board, we had the relationship with Ant and Dec, which then grew into Take That. But when we started that relationship, the whole point about the campaign that we did around Suzuki was to find out what was the USP of Suzuki and how that fitted with the show. And the USP for Suzuki then, which we found out literally by going to talk to their showroom salespeople, was that Suzuki cars were fun. Everybody had a smile when they drove them. They weren't taken seriously in the sense that they were joyful cars. And I don't think anybody at the time had made a car ad for years and years and years that had fun in it. It was all the same. It was cars driving down windy roads with supercilious driver, perfect kids, perfect smiles, and all the rest of it. So we produced that DNA. Ant and Dec and the production team of Saturday Night Takeaway, they do fun. You know, they do fun like nobody else does fun. And so we took an element of the show, which you may or may not remember, which is I'm a Celebrity, Get Me Out of Your Ear, when Ant and Dec control a celebrity and get them to do two weird things. And we moved that into the Suzuki environment, which was of course the showrooms, and they controlled the showroom people to do funny things like sniff the tires when they were showing people the cars and saying how wonderful and tasty the tires were. They should all have a sniff, and just really funny things. And that was understanding the context of the show, taking the content of the show, and understanding the context and the insight of the consumer with in this case a car. You put those three together, and that's the magic mix. Dan,
that was my question. What's the secret formula?
It's so simple. It's so simple, and we ignore it the whole time. You know, and look, I'm going to be a little bit controversial. Talk about AFPs. People come to us as AFPs. They have a place, certainly, but sometimes the question is not asked because the answer is AFP. It's not. With AFPs, what happens is clients are trying to, if you like, generate a message that they want to get across. And that's the sole aim. actually what you're doing then is you're interrupting the experience of the consumer, and the consumer will be less likely to engage in your brand. What we believe is take your brand and come and embed it in what's happening in that cultural experience. So look at the DNA of the show, because that's why people tune into television, is to watch great shows with Leon's talent on it. You know, Saturday Night Takeaway, Britain's Got Talent, it doesn't really, Coronation Street. So be part of that cultural movement. It's really, really simple. Take the DNA of what your brand is, integrate it into the DNA of a cultural phenomenon like Saturday Night Takeaway or Corrie, and then produce content that is sympathetic to that environment. Really simple, and it hasn't changed for 50 years, and we keep trying to change it, and don't, because it's getting less successful, not more successful. You do this, you get it right every single time.
So there you're hearing from Dags, everybody. It's simple.
Or simples, as Alexander would say.
We're going to come to our final example now, which happily is one that's on air right now on ITV Saturday nights, Britain's Got Talent, and M&S Food. And it is this whole campaign is chock-a-block full of talent. Frankly, that just sounds like a contractual legal maelstrom that a whole host of people had to go through. So Leon, I'm going to come to you and ask you, the background of how we got all the Britain's Got Talent to appear in M&S Food's campaign.
Yeah, well, I think this one I think is really, really brave, and it's a great example of kind of a brand innovating, using talent to extend the halo effect of the show IP. And like you say, Claire, talent featured in lots of different ways. So we had, standalone spots with Anton Deck. We had voiceovers featuring the BGT judges that were sort of carried through into stores. Ensemble pieces with all the talent around the table together, talking about the food. And it's not easy bringing a collective of leading talent together in that way in a brand campaign. But I think the real achievement, both by M&S, ITV, all the parties working together, was Shari and the M&S team were really keen to let the talent freely interact with each other, and to get that friendship and that humour across. And I really think that's what lifts the content. That's what makes it believable. And the results speak for themselves. So it's really that kind of creating a framework, but then giving the talent that freedom. And we often talk about kind of challenging the talent themselves on the brief. I feel like M&S really did that with this, and it brought out a level of warmth and authenticity that I think would have been difficult to achieve otherwise.
Let's have a look at some of the VT will show a cut together of the sponsor idents from Britain's Got Talent.
I'm afraid you've got 4 crosses.
If you'll pardon the bun.
M&S Luxury Hot Cross Buns sponsor Britain's Got Talent.
Made without pizza.
Without pizza?
No, made without pizza.
Gotcha. I don't gotcha.
M&S made without wheat sourdough pizza sponsors Britain's Got Talent.
So such warmth coming out of those that cut together of all those VTs. Just humour and warmth is what I hear there. But what I liked in this campaign is how it played out in store.
Yeah.
And on pack, and how it came back through to the product sale of M&S Food. Can you just, for the benefit of everybody, I'm sure they've been in their local M&S and seen it, but just talk us through some of those activations. Which is your favourite bit, Dags?
Well, I think my favourite bit is probably the least popular bit, which is actually, if you've checked out an M&S store at the time, and indeed now, the voice on the tills would be the Ant or Deck or Amanda or one of the other judges. That was my favourite bit, but it wasn't the most popular. The most popular bit was when they took the idea, this is Saturday night entertainment. You got your family sitting together on the sofa, and then all they did in store was have a BGT aisle where you could get all your Saturday night food, all in a single offer. You could all sit down together and enjoy the show. So there was a natural link all the way through from broadcast, talent, and then when you went into the store, there it was in front of you. And it, again, you know, it's very hard to execute, but keeping it simple is the key.
Having a strong idea and running it through simply.
Yeah, and all credit to M&S on this. They really have been absolutely inspirational and and brave, haven't they, Leon?
Yeah,
definitely. No, for sure. I think it is brave, but it really stands out what they've done, and it really sort of takes the halo of the show into wider territory, which is great.
I think all three of the examples we've shown have started with a brave client. And on that note, Leon, how would you recommend brands work with talent in the future? What do they, how do they need to sell it internally up to their boards?
Yeah, well, I think, you know, it begins with, I guess, you know, like Dags has said, that kind of clear framework of what the partnership needs to achieve, the audience it needs to reach, you know, the key messaging and all of that, then identifying the talent that really speak to that audience and really resonate with that audience. But I think, you know, coming back to it again, I think involving the talent early, even in the sort of the pitch stages is something we really recommend. That meeting directly between the talent and the brand, you know, or I guess Zoom call or Google Hangout at the moment, is, you know, it sounds so obvious, but so often it doesn't happen, and it makes a huge difference. And I think especially at the moment where, you know, talent are hypersensitive, quite rightly, about the content that they put out being authentic and genuine, and also wanting to serve audiences with the right type of content that's helpful and informative and you know, and delivers for audiences, so that they want to be sat around the table creatively, and I think that's how you bring the best talent on board. And often, you know, if you can bring the talent on board early, you can excite the senior decision makers as well through showing how engaged they are. So I think those would be the main things for me. And
in the final half of 30 seconds, Dags, how do you see these kind of brand partnerships evolving at ITV in the future?
Yeah, I think, look, each one is individual. Each one has to have an individual conversation. So, and each one will evolve in a different way. But they start with a big idea, a single organising thought. And if we have that and we work closely together between ourselves, production, talent, and client and agency, then that's when the magic happens.
That's great. Thank you both. It's been a nice, informative chat full of insight and brand leading ideas. So thank you very much for your time this afternoon.
Thank you.
Thanks, Claire.